Can we start now?
Yeah, sure. If you talk about the current technology stack, so since the past 2 years have been working microservice architecture. We have different kind of services written into Spring Boot, and apart from this, there are a couple of services into Python and Golang as well. So if you talk about the database side, so we are actually using MongoDB, and for inter-service communication, we are using Kafka. We have multiple REST endpoints as well onto a couple of services which are actually hit from the UI. And apart from this, for the deployment and testing purpose, we are using Docker containers basically, and for versioning tool we are using Git. Apart from this, we are using Jenkins in the build pipeline, and for logging purpose we are using Kibana as well.
Okay. So let's start with the Java, Core Java. So how much you are rating Core Java out of 10?
I would rate myself as 8 out.
Okay. So what is immutable?
Immutable is something whose value actually you cannot modify. For example, we have string class which is immutable in Java. So basically, if you have like string s is equal to abc, and if you try to do s is equal to cd, so it will actually not update the existing same memory location. It will actually create a new one, and the reference will now point to a newer one.
Okay. Can you create your own immutable class?
Yes. For that, I think we have to declare the class as final. We have to only have the get methods. We do not need to have the set method, so that none other class can actually update it. Apart from this, the data members in the class has to be private, so that they are only accessible within that particular class. And yeah, and I think
so if there is only getter method, so how will you initialize all the fields in your immutable class?
We can do that using the constructor, parameterized constructor, inside which we can do a deep
cloning. Why?
Yeah, because otherwise it will, if you do shallow cloning, so it actually uses you can use the clone method that is there. So with that, basically a new object is not created. It actually references to that previous object. So here into it we will do deep cloning, create a new object, and then set the data and then send.
So your getter method will return the actual object reference or the clone object?
So I think they will return the cloned object.
Okay. So have you used the thread project?
Honestly speaking, I never got a chance to work on multi-threading, but yeah, I have the basic.
So do you know the hierarchy of the
thread?
the parent? No. Okay. Do you know the
one minute, Bhagwan. See, Bhagwan is asking about what is the life cycle of how it is.
So there are a few states into it. First is new state, then it actually goes to runnable state, and from there it either goes to run or blocked, and then once it completes its task, it terminated.
So what is the use of wait and sleep?
Yeah, so these are basically used for wait is actually used in cases like there is a thread and you want it to wait for some period of time and release the resources. In the meantime, you want some other thread to be notified, and so that it can start executing. For example, you have suppose one particular task for which one thread is running, and you want certain other task to be completed by some other thread. So you can actually wait, or you can say pause the execution of that particular thread. It will release all the resources, and in the meantime you can actually notify some other thread to actually start its execution.
So what is the difference in sleep and wait mode?
Yeah, so sleep is basically something you actually pause the execution of thread, but it will keep on acquiring all the resources. Whereas with wait, it will pause the execution, but the resources actually will be released by it, so that some other thread can execute. As soon as the time interval you provide in sleep elapses, so the same thread starts its execution, which is not the case into wait.
And what is the use of join?
Join is basically it is.
So it is. I'm going to put another question. How do you control the threads? That is a hint tag.
Is also basically I think it is something like suppose one thread is executing, and then you do a join, then first thread actually basically it so the first thread actually completes its execution, and then the one will start after that.
Mansi, hello.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, what is yield method? What yield will do?
It is also a method from thread class.
Okay, let's move to the next question. What is concurrent hash map?
Yeah, so concurrent hash map basically, so suppose you have it's a kind of implementation of hash map where actually whenever you do a read operation, there is no lock on it. However, whenever you do a write operation, only that particular segment onto which you are writing is logged, not the entire object is actually logged.
Okay. So suppose, so what is the difference between concurrent map and hash table?
So in hash table it is also synchronized, but the entire whenever there is some read or write operation, the entire object of it is logged, whereas in case of concurrent hash map, only a particular segment onto which you are writing is logged. On read operation it is not logged at all, only on write operation it is logged. And in hash table you actually cannot store null, whereas in hash map you can have one null key and multiple null values.
Okay. Okay. Let's move to the next question. Okay. What is garbage collection?
So garbage collection is basically basically into JVM whenever there are a lot of unreferenced objects or kind of dangling entries, you can say dangling objects. So if the job of garbage collector is to actually clear all those out and actually remove, or you can say delete all those dangling memory references or certain objects which are actually not referenced. So it basically performs a cleanup task.
Okay. So suppose I am creating one object using the new operator. Okay. So where it will store?
That will be stored, I think, in the heap memory.
So heap memory also having the different parts. Okay. Can you explain that? Do you have idea? No. Okay. So which JDK version you are using?
Yeah, we are using JDK version 1.8.
Okay. Can you tell what are the new features has been added to 1.8?
Yeah, so basically they have added functional interfaces, Lambda expression API, and apart from that optional is also added, method reference. These are more or less.
We heard about default method in interface. So what is that?
So with Java, it basically there are functional interfaces that have been provided. As part of that, you can have the default methods as well. So they are actually associated with a default keyword, and then you can provide the method into which you can also provide the implementation or method body of that particular inside the functional interface.
Okay. Okay. What is singleton class?
Singleton is basically with singleton basically you are actually restricting to create multiple instances of a particular class. So meaning to say, like, you have a class singleton, so there will just be one single instance present of that class. You are actually not allowing some other class or something to actually create more than one. Whenever it tries to do a get instance, basically we check if that instance is already created, we basically return the same, and if not created, then we do create.
So what are the things need to taken care whenever you are creating the singleton class? How we can our own singleton class?
Yeah, so for that basically we need to have private data members. Apart from this, we actually need a private constructor, so that no other class can actually create an instance of that particular class. And apart from this, we will have no getters basically, and setters, and also we will have a get instance method using which we can actually get the instance of that particular that particular class. So inside that we will have an if check. If that is equal to null, then we create a new instance and return it. If that is not null, we will actually return the same. Apart from this, we also have to take care of multi-threaded environment, so that if suppose couple of threads actually execute, and inside if equal to null, then they may break this. So we use synchronized block for that purpose in order to ensure that it is multi-thread.
Okay, so only is it enough or something we need on this?
I
How
I think
they,
yeah, please.
yeah, ma'am.
I think we will
Go ahead, go ahead.
also need the double check, and the class also has to be final. That are the
So how do you handle that it is cloned? How do you avoid that clone?
for that maybe we can actually maybe override the clone method and throw an exception inside it.
Okay, and is there any other way we can break it?
We can maybe break it through reflection based reflections. We can actually get
Okay, and serialization and deserialization.
what is the issue if we serialize or delete it? We are simply converting into byte.
No. So while doing that deserialization is a issue. Our main objective is gone. Means it is ensure that we have to maintain single object, right, to enter the application. So what happening if you do a deserialization? Can you explain?
Yeah, so at the time of deserialization, basically the entire byte stream that we serialize the object into is converted back to the state of an object, basically using the serial version UI. So I think we can maybe override.
No, nobody talking to you. Go
Okay.
ahead.
Okay. So maybe what we can do is so we have write object and read object method. So if you want to stop the deserialization, maybe you can override the read object method and do not allow it to actualize. Overriding it and kind of exception or
Yeah, please go ahead, Amjad.
Yeah, Mansi. Okay, Mansi. So let's. What are the design patterns? You know, Mansi.
yeah, so I have mostly worked on creational design patterns only. Singleton, prototype, factory, abstract factory, more or less.
Okay. What is factory design pattern? Can you explain?
Yeah, so basically factory design pattern is generally used for loose coupling purpose. Like suppose I have an interface and I have multiple implementations of that interface. So basically I have a factory class which actually makes the decision which particular implementation I have to actually invoke, create an object of or use based. So that is something factory pattern. You have all the decision making power with the factory class itself, and rest of the things are loosely coupled basically. Best example of it is
yeah, tell me.
so yeah, so best example of it is Spring Bean factory itself. It also internal factory pattern, and apart from this, like in our project we have like device and multiple types of devices. So we have a device interface and multiple implementations of it. So there is a class basically that takes the entire decision which implementation based on the request we have to invoke. So basically in that case we are using a factory.
Okay, so you have worked on a Spring, right? Okay, what is the default scope of the build?
Yeah, that is singleton based.
Singleton. Okay, so how many types are there? Means how many types of scopes are there?
Yeah, so it is singleton. We have a prototype, which these are the two that we generally use. Apart from this, we have session, I think request and global session.
Okay, so what is dependency injection?
Dependency injection is basically something like suppose I'll just tell you with an example. So it also enables loose coupling. So basically, like for example, I have a controller of mine, right? And then I actually have a service layer where I have written the business logic of it. So in order to call my service layer from my controller, I need to actually have the service bean base. So I can use AutoWired for that, and at the time of creation of controller bean, before that basically all its dependencies that will be auto-wired into it, which I'll be using, have to be actually injected inside it for the loose coupling purpose. Like suppose I'm calling a service, for example, I'm just auto wiring a service and I have multiple implementations of that particular service. So I can actually inject any one of those basically into it. So it actually enables loose coupling, and it definitely is at the time of bean creation we are injecting the dependency of some other bean into it basically, so that it can be used for.
Okay, so how many types are there? How many ways you can do the dependency injection?
Yeah, so basically dependency injection is basically done using AutoWired, and initially it is done first of all by type. So suppose you have like single type, then it will automatically inject inside it. Otherwise, if you have like two kind of beans with similar type basically, so it will do a auto wire by name.
Okay.
So it is one second. It is a dependency injection. What is the different type of? So do you remember that setter injection and
Okay, yeah, constructor and
Yeah,
setter
he is
base.
expecting those things also,
Okay,
please.
Yes,
okay.
yes, sir.
Yeah, so in basically constructor based injection, we are actually injecting it from the constructor itself. Like in the constructor, we provide @autowired, and we have certain set of parameters over there which we can actually inject. Apart from that, for setter based injection on the setter itself, we provide @autowired. And if you talk about, I haven't actually worked too much into that bean XML part, but for constructor it is like with the tag constructor args, there you can provide them. And for setter based, it is like property name and value, the name of the property and the value of that property. Likewise, that you can
Okay, okay, let's move to the next question. Okay, assume that there is a one interface, okay, interface I, and we have a three class A, class B, and so these three classes implements interface, okay. So I would like to define the polymorphism, okay, independence injection. So how we can achieve? I mean, I'm creating the object of A, and I'm giving the reference as a I, okay, and B object and the reference I'm giving as I. Okay, got it. So this is like a polymorphism we are achieving, right? So how we can, does a Spring support for the polymorphism? And if yes, how we can do it?
Yes, I think we can do that using the qualifier, and provide @qualifier, and inside the argument we can provide into double quotes the basically the name in that act.
Okay, okay. Have you worked on Spring security?
Honestly speaking, I actually haven't worked on.
Do you have idea how it works? I mean, how we can do it? No.
Like here, honestly speaking, we have like a user management microservice specifically for that purpose. So what happens is, there we have actually implemented the Spring security. So as soon as a user logs in, it basically goes to the Mongo database and checks the credentials are accepted form. Basically validates those credentials, and once if they are successfully validated, they actually return a bearer token to the UI. With every request, basically into the headers, you have to provide authorization along with the bearer token for the request to be valid.
Okay. Okay, so you have worked on microservices also? Okay, so what is the advantage of using the microservices application over the monolithic application?
Yeah, so the main advantage of microservices scaling. At runtime, you can actually scale your services basically. So for example, like suppose I'm not sure what they use, but if you talk about like Flipkart, so they have like, for usual days, then okay, we have for example 1 million hits on our particular services, so we need these many instances for each service. Now there is a, suppose Flipkart big billion sale, and now from the 1 million it crawls up to 4 million hit per day. So actually at runtime, they can actually scale their services to serve the coming requests in a better way. I mean, they can increase the number of instances of their services so that the processing time is actually reduced, and with more number of instances, they can actually handle the requests in a better way. For if you talk about a load related scenario, so the main advantage that a microservice has, at runtime, you can actually, without much effort, you can simply scale it, increase the number of instances of that particular service without any issue, and they will work with a better performance, which is not there in monolithic app.
Okay, is
So
there any other?
how will you achieve this? Yeah, please.
Yeah, Bhagwan, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, so how will you achieve the auto scaling in microservice environment? Are you using any Kubernetes, and so how will you achieve?
Yeah, so we are basically using Kubernetes based setup for that. We actually increase the number of instances that actually run on different ports basically as of.
Tell me the commands of the.
Not actually be done by the team.
Know how to deploy the project using the Kubernetes commands and the auto scaling?
So for deployment purpose, I have actually worked on Docker part basically. So we usually have we have a Docker file which we provide the ports we running, and the environment definitely along with that. So we actually provide these details and do a Docker comes up so that it starts inside the container. As far as I know, for Kubernetes, basically again we have a YAML file where we have the images and different other parameters as well along. I think for that not very much sure about what is the command basically. We usually for logs we have kubectl hyphen f logs, and then the container more. I'm not sure of how to add. Haven't worked much on Kubernetes. I have.
So you are familiar with the Docker. So tell me the commands. So how will you run the Docker and how will you deploy?
Yeah, so for running the Docker images, we have a Docker compose file, and if we do Docker compose space pull, if we do like that, it actually pulls all the images from the Docker hub basically that you have provided as part of your YAML file. And if you talk about actually starting those instances, so you can do a Docker compose up hyphen. So the hyphen D stands for daemon, so it runs into the background, and with up command you basically have all your instances up. If you suppose if you actually want you want to actually run it, suppose you have an image and you want to you have the URL and you want to actually pull, so you can use docker pull, and then you can give the docker hub URL, so that will pull the image if you're not this docker compose. Apart from this, you want to see okay what all images are up and running, what is the status, you can do docker compose ps. That will show you all the images that you have with the container IDs, containers, and port onto which it is mapped to. And apart from this, I think for logs you can use docker logs hyphen f, and then you can provide the container ID or the name of the container. That will show you all the logs for that.
Okay, so there is a command docker run hyphen p and the port number colon port. So what is this two ports?
So if you have so that is basically used for mapping purpose. Suppose
But I am talking about the port number.
Yeah.
Why we are using these two ports?
So suppose you have you have 8080 colon 8081. So that means that your application into your application dot properties, your application is actually running on to 8081 port, and now you are mapping it to 8080 port on Docker. So that is why you will have 8080 colon 8081. So when you will hit hostname colon 8080, you will be actually able to access whatever like Swagger or something like that, UI, whatever. So basically the first one is the Docker port, and the other one is basically the port into which the service is running inside the container.
Okay, using the Docker, can we achieve the auto scaling, or there is any limitation?
Auto scaling, if you talk about that, I mean definitely we can run using Docker multiple instances of a particular service onto different kind of port. I have actually never honestly, I have just tried with couple of 2 or 3 instances. Actually never tried with too many of them. Not aware what is the way, but you definitely have to provide different maps.
So have you you have worked in the microservice environment? So in your current project, can you tell me the services you created and how they are interacting?
So basically, we have 5 to 10 servers into our environment. I'll just go through one of the flow that we usually have for the inter-service. Like suppose we have a service which basically, so this is related to network devices, and so there is one service which actually maintains all the data of that particular of all the devices that are there within an, and there are a couple of services at the southbound which actually interacts with that device, connect them and get for certain data. So we have different set of services for getting the data from the device and for updating the data onto the device. So basically like whenever we want to connect, so basically both those services have to actually establish a connection with the device. So as soon as suppose a request lands in for creating a device to the UI from the UI, sorry, so basically that request comes API gateway to this device. It is called device manager service. What it does is, because if you are like, it is a bulk onboarding process. So if you will actually add devices one by one, it is going to take a lot of time and it will be like loading onto the UI. So initially what it does is, it simply saves the entire data, dumps the data onto the database, and what it does is, it further sends a Kafka based notification to the other couple of services. In the meantime, with an initial status of device saying waiting for connect. Once those devices actually have on that particular topic, they have a consumer that is repeatedly polling from that particular topic. So they actually get that message and actually connect to the device, and then further after processing, they actually notify to this particular service on some other topic onto which continuously list whether it was success or failure. So accordingly it updates into the DB, and which is further shown on the UI to the user. So this is just one.
For messaging service, you are using which, Kafka or another one?
Yeah, we are using Kafka for that.
Okay, what is PubSub? What is PubSub in Kafka?
PubSub, are you saying that, is it publish and subscribe, is it?
Yes.
Yeah, so publish is something that you notify from a particular service. So you publish certain data or message onto a particular topic, and subscriber is your consumer application which actually has subscribed to that topic and continuously polling messages or data from that particular topic, trying to consume that. So once
more than one subscriber can subscribe to one topic, or only one subscriber can?
Yes, multiple number of subscribers can actually subscribe to a particular topic in order to fetch the data from that particular topic.
That is the async call or the asynchronous call or synchronous call?
That is asynchronous. So basically a notification is pushed onto the topic, and there are multiple subscribers who have actually subscribed to that topic, or you can say multiple consumers which actually read the data from that particular topic and proceed based on their implementation.
What is the role of broker in Kafka?
So okay, so Kafka broker is basically it kind of you can say a kind of this is a kind of cluster basically that actually maintains multiple kind of, you can say, all the basically data related to the topics and everything. So that is actually maintained within the Kafka broker.
So you don't have any idea about the Spring security, right? Any or you don't know. Okay. So have you written the JUnit test cases?
Yes.
What is the difference in PowerMock and Mock?
So PowerMock and Mockito. So basically with Mockito we actually mock different kind of methods, but it is very kind of difficult, you can say, to mock static methods. We usually use PowerMock in order to mock static methods.
Okay. So you have used this Java 8. So have you used this stream API in your project? So tell me the numbers of methods it supports.
Number of methods that. So with streams we have different kind of operations which have different set of methods actually that it supports. For intermediate and terminal operations basically we have, if we talk about intermediate, we have filter, map, flat map, and certain other like we have sorted for sorting purpose. And if you talk about this terminal operation, we have collect method, inside which you can provide collectors.toList in case you want list as the resultant, or set, or whatever you want, you can provide that as part of terminal operation.
Okay. If I want to sort a list of integers and I want the second log, how will you achieve it?
So you can use like that is a list of integers. So you can use like list dot, and then after stream method you can use a dot, and for sorting purpose you can use a sorted method base. So with sorted you can provide like inside the braces you can provide like I1, I2, and then you can use the compare to method basically for the comparable interface inside it to actually get the value in sorted order. And then at the end you can do dot collect collectors or toList or whatever it is. Apart from this, what was the second?
Actually, I want the second largest number in the list. That was my question.
So you want second largest, so we can just sort that and get the second last index of it, or you want it
Okay.
using the filter method.
So you tell me how you can achieve using this string.
Yeah, using the string we can simply sort it, and then you do a collectors dot toList, then into the resultant we can either get the second last the index last basically whatever list dot size minus 2 index we can get. Otherwise what we can do is we can actually use stream dot max method for that I think will return actually the max.
Okay, leave it. So how we can get this the average salary of each department using this string?
So I think for that we can do like we have suppose a list of department employee having, so we can do a list of average. So we can use the average method for that. We can do list dot and then we can have actually basically we can do like list dot stream, and then for getting the salary out of suppose employee class it is, then I can do map and then I can do employee to the method reference. I can using the get salary method I can do a get salary get the salary of each of it, and then I can use a dot average basically find the average of it.
Okay, leave it. So we have the list. I want to convert it to map. Which method you will use?
You want to convert it to a map list of what actually you have to provide as a right?
There is a there is a list, any list, and I want to convert it into map. So for example, I have the form object, and now there is a list of the form. So I want to convert it to map, and the key will be the form ID and the value.
So for that I think you can simply do like you can do list dot stream dot inside the collect operation you can actually provide collectors dot to map. So like suppose you have firm, so firm class with method reference you want get firm ID comma whatever firm, if you want to provide firm name you can simply use the get firm name method.
What is method referencing?
So method referencing is basically used in cases when suppose you have a class inside which earlier on what we used to do, suppose in a class we have used to have getter or something like that through class instance dot method name. So with method references you can simply provide the name of the class, and using two colons basically after two colons you can provide the method name from which you actually want data. Which you actually want to call.
Static method. If in case of I have a static method, then
for static method you can simply use like class name dot
what is optional?
So optional is basically you can say a wrapper that actually surrounds an object. So it is majorly used to avoid null pointer exceptions basically. Like for example earlier on we used to have you can say instance of an object and we do something like dot some operation onto it, and if that object is null we used to get null pointer, right? So it is actually used to avoid null pointer with option. Suppose I have an optional of employee, so I can actually use optional dot is present to check if that employee object is actually present, then only I operate onto it or fetch the data or update the data. Otherwise I actually do not do anything, because if that is null that will return false.
Okay.
Likewise,
in the DAO layer you are using JP or Hibernate?
Yeah, we are using JP.
Okay. How we can create the JP class?
So you are talking about repository, is it?
Yes.
So basically here like for example we have an interface, repository interface. Now so we are actually extending Mongo repository over here, specialized implementation of JPA repository, and also extend the JPA repository as well. So inside that basically you have to provide as generics the name of the collection, or you can say the name of the entity, comma whatever is your type of key base string along whatever it is you provide. So along with that it actually provides certain default methods like save, find all, find by IDs, like that. If you want to write your custom query you can also use @query, and inside the double quotes you can provide that particular query. Otherwise like you can also use matches. So if find by ID is there, if you provide like find by suppose you have name into your entity class. If you do a find by name, it is automatically going to
Have you used GPS specification executor?
we are actually using Mongo.
No, I think GPS specification executor. So you can put your criteria and criteria here. You can put as you are using the method, you can like that use this your. Okay, what is executor in the scenario of the threads in multi-threading environment?
So executor is basically you can say there is an executor framework. So you have like in executor like you have like you can create multiple. There are multiple ways into which create thread inside a thread pool, like fixed thread pool and single one. So there are 3 to 4 implementations. So that will actually create a thread pool, and in the executor you can actually execute certain tasks which are actually executed by those threads once they finish.
Tell me the name of the methods of execution.
I think it's single thread executor, fixed thread pool, also have like cached thread. There is one more.
That's fine. So one second. Right. So do you know how do you remove the duplicate elements from the array? Can you write?
The array?
Yeah.
Yes. Do you want?
Sure. Yeah. We are able to see.
If you want to actually remove the duplicate, we can simply add it inside the set. That will automatically.
Right. One second. So don't apply any inbuilt classes or.
What I'm trying here, ARR of I think will update the rest of the memory load.
So what is the complexity here?
So it is O of n cross.
Right, it is n square, right? So n square always it is it will give bad performance. Yeah, it is try to reduce that complexity.
Like use a sorted, we sort the array and then suppose the adjacent ones actually and.
So here it is. Once again, here it is. Don't apply any inbuilt methods. If you want sort, it is you can use in sorting algorithms, or it is other way you can sort it and can, but don't use inbuilt method like a sort. See, you are creating new array, right? It's going to. It is that the condition is satisfied, going to store in another array and it is increment. I can maintain that j and increment j. Can do that. Are you getting what I'm telling?
Yes, for that like we do like will actually this. So basically every time it matches. So why do we actually need to actually put it inside this? This is actually matching. We do not actually need to create a new one. Why not update the previous one? Like
yeah, you can do that. It is your wish. Go ahead and do on that. How we are going to reduce the length and everything you can take care.
This will actually work because see I do not need to create a new one, right? Using the j, if suppose that is not equal to the I plus 1, then inside this basically if it is not equal onto the same array, basically I am putting this I. If it is equal, it will simply ignore, and for suppose for example I have like 1 comma 1. So first time it will actually on the 0th position it will actually keep 1, and if in this case this condition will actually not be satisfied. So what it will do, it will do nothing, and then my j is still at 0, right? I haven't basically that is at 1 base after this. So if this condition again on this element, basically this condition will actually satisfy, and then on my this j is actually 1 at this particular point of time, so it will actually update this this one 2 at this particular.
Yeah, can you execute this program? Can you so pass that it is array and
Yeah, sure. Like simply
yeah, if you want you can make it separate method also. You can pass this. How do you want? You can go ahead. So that's fine. So do you have experience on data structures? Do you know singleton design? Singleton?
Yes.
Sorry, not singleton. Single linked list. How do you reverse the single linked list? Can you write the code?
you can like have a temp.
Yeah, it is. Do you know, right? So whatever it is a collection, our collection framework API, that it is a doubly linked list by
Yes,
default.
yes.
There is Java. There is no.
Yes, I'm able to hear you.
Yeah,
Yes,
sorry.
sir.
Actually, I lost my connection. Can you tell?
Right. What I am asking, how do you reverse the single linked list? Assume that we have it is a set of nodes. So it is assume that it is a unsorted nodes. So how do you reverse those nodes?
So that linked is basically the next verse. Can we have? Can we do?
Mansi, are you Hello.
Am I audible?
Yes, are you comfortable in writing this one single in English?
Maybe I can actually try.
Hello.
Yeah, am I
Mansi.
audible? Yeah, maybe I can actually try actually.
Your wife.
Sorry.
It is just take care this one. I will do another.
Yeah, Mansi.
Yeah.
Are you even writing what Umapati has asked? No, then fine.
I think I can try. So you want
Okay.
me to create a custom node, right?
No, it's okay.
Yeah, so into doubly linked list, basically you have both the pointers. One is to previous and one is to the next
Okay.
node. Into a circular linked list, really your first node previous reference would be actually pointing to the next of the last node of your.
How?
Yeah, I am fine with that.
Okay, I will give you one. Having the ISO to write. Right.
Yeah, I think using the necessary
You can use.
yeah.
You can use the init query.
Yeah, so basically we can do it like select star from employee where basically I can mention the salary, well, right? Salary is greater than.
Yeah.
And inside that we can actually start a nested query once again to do a
Okay.
select max from employee where do a select max from employee,
Yeah, yeah.
basically that will return the
Can
maximum.
you try to write?
Yeah, shall I write it here? My screen is visible.
What is join left out?
Yeah, so left inner join. Okay, so if you talk about left outer join, so into left outer join, basically all the records of the left, the first table actually will be there, and for the second, basically all the records that will be intersection of or you can say common into both those will be taken from the second table.
So how you guys are run or some
Yes,
other?
yeah, we are using. So we have like a develop branch into which is the main branch we put all our code into, and then we actually create multiple branches, our own branches based on user story that is as to us. We create our own branch and make the changes and push onto our branch, which on the pull request we basically mention the desk branch as.
Yeah. So before pushing, how do you rebasing or you remember the command?
Yes, so we actually like suppose I have to pull from suppose some main branch. Suppose I have to develop, so I do git pull origin and I provide develop. And if you want to rebase, you can provide I think git rebase.
What is different fix and
Sorry, what?
and the use flashing. So what is different?
For squash, basically like we have a suppose in our in our number of commits, suppose we have a lot many number of commits. So I want to actually out of all the changes I want to actually convert those commit as suppose a single commit. In that case I use squash, basically like I have 10 commits and I do a squash and I do it entire change clubbed up as one single commit, basically that is something we call as squash. And what is the other term this?
Okay, so without merge, what merge or
So if I'm not taking a pull before actually pulling from the master and someone has actually pushed the code into the master, so while pushing it will actually fail and I will get some conflict if that is there in the same file that I have.
so you will get any notificate or no?
Yeah. Am I audible?
Yes.
Hello? Yeah, am I audible?
Now we are we are yeah, can hear.
Yeah.
So how you guys are your
Yeah, so we are actually using Bitbucket for that. So as soon as actually there are a lot of things that happen as the build pipeline process. So as soon as like we make some changes and those changes into our branch, and then we actually create a pull request for that. So suppose I have my branch and I want to actually provide the destination branch as suppose for its master branch. So I as soon as I I create a pull request, so the diff is completely visible. There are some list of mandatory reviewers minimum, like we have all the mandatory reviewers review should be complete. And and also we actually as part of that we actually run Jenkins jobs as well, like we run the static analysis tool, sonar cube for that, which does the static analysis as part of it. and also actually calculates the coverage. We actually run the JUnit as well. And apart from this, there are couple of automation suites as well which actually run onto it. Once all the builds are successful and all the approvals we get, then in that case we are actually able to merge our JUnit.
Okay. So what is the official notice period?
Yeah, so officially it is 90 days. I am actually serving under notice period, so my last working day is 9th
of April. Okay. So your base location is?
Bangalore.
Location? Bangalore. So you are comfortable with Bangalore only, right?
Yeah, I mean location is not a constraint. Okay with all the locations, but yeah, if you ask me preferable, then Bangalore will.
Bangalore, right? Yeah. Okay. Okay, I'm done. Bhagwan, you have any question?
No, I don't have.
Don't have. Okay. Okay, fine, Mansi. Thanks for your time and thanks for coming for your interview. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much.
Bye bye.
Thanks, Bhagwan. Yeah. Bye.
Thank you.